Okay, so I made this commitment to start producing teaching videos because I'm saying that I'm a transformational coach and I would like to deal with matters of the mind. And so here we go. This one will be about knowing thyself. I chose know thyself because no matter what you're working towards, knowing yourself is an integral part of that process. It's really important. It gives you a solid foundation. And it pretty much helps you become unstoppable, because once you work through this process, what can't you work through? And I mean, let's include that this is a lifelong process, but there are fundamental pieces I'm going to talk about that will give you a healthy starting point and a solid foundation. Let's get into it. Um, so when I say know thyself, I mean understand yourself. Understand who you are, meaning your strengths, and not just know your strengths. Know what you're good at, know what you're great at, and embrace it. Identify with it. Appreciate that part of yourself. Also know your weaknesses. Be aware of your triggers. Be aware of your needs and your desires. And be aware of like what you bring and can give as well, like what you bring to the table and what you're willing to give people. What are the natural things that you have to offer? And that might also be some of your strengths, but it's also a different path, right? Strengths is just something you're naturally capable of doing, great at, enjoy, passionate about. Whereas what you're able to give and willing to give, that's a special gift. That's something really, really special. So positive psychology, you should research this term if you're unfamiliar with it. It talks a lot about focusing on the good, which will be the strength-based part of knowing yourself. You could research that, knowing yourself, knowing your strengths, positive psychology. You could Google stuff like that. I'm going to focus more on knowing your weaknesses, your flaws, your triggers, because it's less information out there on that. And understanding those things are the hardest part because they make you really uncomfortable. So that's what this video will be about. So when I say understanding your triggers, I mean understand the things that make you tick. Once you can identify them, you can work through that and you can remove the impact it has on you. For example, some people get really worked up when being yelled at. Well, 9 times out of 10, I as a coach, or you could walk yourself through a process of no longer allowing that to impact you in the ways that will make you act out in a negative way. Whether that's creating sadness and anger and frustration, or just an emotional reaction in general. If I have time, I'll come back to that. I also suggest knowing your weaknesses. Knowing your weaknesses creates a lot of opportunity for you. One way in which it creates opportunity is once you identify your weakness, you can now address it. You can either strengthen yourself in that area or build around it. For example, something I'm not the greatest is editing videos. Now I do enough to be able to put quality content out, but at some point I'm probably going to get a team member that's a videographer. That naturally will make sense for me. Personally, I know that something I'm weak at is was something that will tie into a journey full of hope, something that I'm weak at. Overanalyzing, right? So that's something that is a strength as well as a weakness for me. And being mindful of that allows me to prepare. It allows me to know what resources I need to keep myself in check. And I can monitor it because I know that that's an area I'm weak. So yes, once you know something, you can prepare for it. You can work around it. You can create systems to either heal that issue or keep it from getting you off course. Also, knowing your weaknesses allows you to spiritually be dependent on God for something. And when you do that, he comes through and he shows out. There have been countless times where I've struggled in the area and I will pray to God about it, surrender it to him, and all of a sudden things get to working and grooving. And if I didn't pray, I would have obsessed over it. I would have forced it. I probably would have sabotaged. And I know that from previous experience. Knowing your weaknesses also allows you to be human. So many of us walk around like we're perfect. We've got it all figured out. We don't have problems. And we miss the opportunity to just be able to connect human to human. So if you know you're a bad communicator, or you struggle with anger, or you struggle with lust, whatever, that allows you to be patient with other people. That allows you to also see, this is important, This allows you to also see the process of growth in others because you've also worked through that, or you are working through that. So when you're in a relationship where someone is weak in a particular area, let's say infidelity, you get cheated on, but you want to say you want to work it out, you'll know what it looks like if your partner is truly addressing that versus if he's just giving you the okie doke or she's giving you the okie doke. You'll know that from experience. And finally, I think that knowing your weaknesses and having the confidence to know that you can improve on any flaw, and if it's something that's so innate you can't improve it, you can set a foundation for yourself where it won't affect you, whether it's through a team, a business partner, a significant other, whatever, or just getting resources and support that you'll purchase, like going to a tax person every season, right? Having that confidence will help you as a parent, because every child has a different personality, every child has a different set of skills, and every child has a different set of weaknesses. And so you'll be able to catch patterns of behavior to let you know, okay, this baby needs to work on that. We need to get some tutoring in this area, or we need to do some affirmations in this area, or we need to pray over this, or we need to do all of this stuff to make sure, you know, your child is prepared in that particular area of weakness. It will also allow you to affirm your child and be patient with your child and not personalize that area as negligence on their part. So I said, know your triggers, know your triggers, know your weaknesses, and know your needs. Knowing your needs prepares you for all relationships. It prepares you to be in situations where you're giving and receiving reciprocal energy, even if it's not the same. For example, I had to take the time out to be single and figure out what I need in a romantic partner. Figuring that out also lets you know what I need in majority of my relationships, because I need what I'm looking for in a partner just on a lesser level in my friendships as well as my other loving relationships. So knowing what I need allows me to say, okay, he's great, he's attractive, but is he an effective communicator? Is he patient? Can he handle the fact that I'm super strong, but also super sweet and kind of vulnerable at times? I'm actually a sensitive soul. That's a part of how I can be such a great coach. It also allows me to be transparent on the front end of that relationship. So instead of spending 6 months to a year to discern, hey, this really isn't working, I can be pretty honest about if we're compatible as the initial onset of certain characteristics come out, or when I really begin to see, hey, he's not really patient, or hey, he doesn't really care to listen, or hey, he doesn't have the ability to express what he needs or be vulnerable with me, and I need that in a partner, because I don't know how we're going to work through those rough patches if my significant other can't express what's frustrating them, and if I can't improve on those things, and vice versa, right? So I know myself and know that that's something that I need. I also know myself well enough to know what are my temptations, what are the stuff that I tend to fall for. And that's pretty similar to triggers, although temptations lead to cycles of behavior that might not necessarily sabotage you, but might get you off track a little bit. An example of temptation for me is food. Girl, we know that though, right? So because of temptation, if let's say I was doing a diet, I'm not into dieting, but if I were doing a diet, I would eat before I go places. I would make sure that I'm satisfied. I would make sure that I had a balanced meal that promotes satiety, whatever. When it has enough saturated fats and protein and carbs and whatever nutrients to keep me satisfied long enough to get through that period, whether it's meetings or a banquet, whatever, I would prepare for that. I just want people to walk away knowing that we all have strengths and weaknesses, and a part of being strong is being aware that you're weak, right? A part of being strong is having the humility and the courage to know that you can improve on pretty much anything as long as you're willing to grow, do research, and learn. Go through the process of trial and error. There's no need to close yourself off from you. There is no need to be perfect in this world at all, because we're all growing individuals, and welcome people on that journey with you. Grow with people. That's the point. You know, it's all love out here. So Be encouraged.